Hey, man. You.
You know what's interesting is this side chat in like video voice chats. I people use it to communicate off screen, and I never think about it. I've never really thought of it. It's so hidden away.
Now recording.
Our cool off period.
Yeah,
Right, coming in hot.
let me see if audio. I'm not testing.
Check one.
Testing.
Yep,
Get
we're
a
on.
check.
I'm always paranoid by the way that Focusrite is set up, whether or not the audio is being captured, but it is. Go for it, Clark.
Oh, are we starting? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to That's Effing Weird. I am one of your hosts, Clark. I'm joined today by.
And I'm Seth.
Well, hi. So tonight it's the three of us, and we're going to have a kind of a late night discussion, but it is weird. It is an oddity of our calendar and our orbit, I guess, so our very existence. It's an oddity that we've created. We're going to talk about leap days and leap years because we just had one this week. As of this recording, we're living in it. So this is a leap year. We just had leap day, and I find this fascinating because we kind of mystify it, but at the same time, it is something that we've kind of created because it's actually a fault in our calendar more than anything, and that's something we'll probably get into, and we might drive ourselves crazy thinking about because. And I love the fact that you'll both crack liquid deaths in front of me. Caught that.
This was planned.
This was planned.
I knew you cracked them at the same time. I was waiting. I saw just the Grim Leafer that really got me, and I was like, "Look at that! That's just in my face. I get it."
Oh, it's actually mango chainsaw.
I will literally.
It looks like
I will ship you a case of them if you want your favorite, whichever flavor.
This
That's
one's
the
mango
gold
chainsaw.
Oh, okay. Yours. So in the light, yours looks like the gold one.
Yeah. No, I know which one you're talking about. I've seen it. I want to try. I haven't tried it.
Yeah,
so.
that's the one I really want to get is the Grim Leafer, the tea. But I will get to that one eventually. I've only seen a couple of them, but we'll get to that later. But yeah,
sorry.
No, that's a great joke.
Wait, I have a question about this. Now, is this somehow centered around the Pope trying to change history by like folding time on like certain things, and that's why we have all these coins that have like, is this like Roman time calendar changing, or
Yeah,
doing
this would
something?
be. Well, we're basing it off of our calendar, which is the Julian calendar. So we'll use that as a base. But I would like to actually look up some research on how the Gregorian calendar and how like East Asian calendars actually make up for kind of make up for this time if they include it at all or if they just let like time run its course. Because I'm not as familiar with like Chinese New Year, which just happened. I don't know if that will vary based on having that extra day or that extra quarter day even every year. So I guess we should start by explaining to those who don't want to look it up or don't know the reason we have a leap day or a leap year every 4 years is because Earth's how we've calculated Earth's orbit around the sun is 365.25 days. It's actually 0.24233 or something weird, but it's basically 2.5. So about 365 and a quarter days. So to make up for that anomaly, every 4 years, we have an extra day added to the calendar, which we do in February because it's our shortest month in the Julian calendar. So we add February 29th, which was, as of this recording, a day or two ago. I won't say exactly when it is because let's not give away the secrets. Uh, but so we've kind of, it gets into a weird query in the fact that we still don't really explain what time is and how our brains experience time. So we know that Earth is making this orbit around the sun, and we have calculated it into a measurement that we can kind of bend our minds around, and also using 24 hours in a day as far as a rotation of the Earth. and we come to this calendar that we think is perfect and it's actually off every 4 years, and we have to correct that, and that's where we get this problem. So the question kind of like, if you want to get into really kind of weird metaphysical talk here, is did we create this because our calendar has to make up for it, or is there some weird time anomaly in the fact that we cannot mathematically make up for the fact that we can't perfectly we can't get to a number or something down perfect to where, or we can't create a calendar perfect enough to account for this time going around the sun. It's, it's a weird thing. Like, it's not as perfect as, you know, I don't know. We want everything to be kind of nice and tidy and neat, and we pretend like it is, but it's not. Do you think that's something we just is it just as simple as, oh, it's math and we just have to add this day in to correct, decimal points, or is there something we're just not getting about being able to, like, concise time into something we can rationalize and not have to think about? Can we get everything back down to Roman numerals? Can we get to tens and fives and tens and twenties and hundreds?
Uh, Man, I don't know. I think that what really weirded me out when I was like a teenager was realizing that um in my head, the way I was taught in middle school and high school is like here's a diagram, a dot revolving around another dot, and everything seemed like very much clockwork. And it blew my mind when I realized that it's not. We're pretty sure it's a complete rotation. Like how we've hashed it out and based on measurements and stars and where this is at different times. But it kind of blew my mind that it's like that's our best guess. That was like weird to me. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm the right person to. I'm trying to
That
think.
is right, because technically one rotation isn't 24 perfect hours either. It's actually 23 and some change. It's close enough to 24 that we round it off. So we actually don't know what year it is if you really think about it. Like, we're just
Yeah.
making up stuff at this point.
Now, does anything have to do with this being like a axis wobble, or is that more seasonal change?
That's more seasonal, but you got to think, if something happens where, we actually tilt for some reason or stay in a season, or something goes off with that axis wobble, will that change? I mean, will it change the speed of the rotation of Earth at all or something, or will it, affect that 24-hour kind of cycle? It could. Who knows?
Well, what really weirds me out is, would we know, or how long would it take us if there was a gradual increase in speed or decrease? Because in your head, everything seems locked in at standard velocities, but things are changing. We live such a short amount of time, we don't see it, but on a long enough time scale, speeds and distances of bodies are changing pretty
Right.
rapidly out there.
We also experience time different. People on the International Space Station are living
Yeah.
slower than we are, just because they're
Yes.
farther away from Earth. So
Oh
time
man.
dilation is kind of a weird thing also.
Sunshine and the time dilation at the when they're trying to nuke the sun's core. I love that string of movies that came out. It was like the Earth's core is dying. Got to nuke it. We got to go to the center of the Earth and nuke it, or we got to nuke the sun back to life in sunshine. But the when they're actually out there and they get closer to the gravitational pull, time stops making sense. They're so close to it. But that like blew my mind.
That's something I can't even comprehend. Like, just that.
And I love
Relativity.
Yeah, that's difficult for
Interstellar
me
did
to
a good
understand.
job trying to make it make sense, with, like, even with, like, audio cues, like with the ticking in the music was like representative of a everyday passing on Earth when they're off in the other planets and
Yes.
stuff. Like,
Yes.
I think Christopher Nolan, he's obsessive over his research anyway, so I think he kind of did a good job trying to explain that time is malleable. Time is actually experienced. It's not something explainable or finite. Like, it's not something concrete, I guess you should say.
Yeah.
Uh, it's experienced different.
Yeah, man, talk about another good. She's this close to watching Interstellar. That's a
Mm.
high on the list. When I watched that movie, I was like, I think I watched it in IMAX the way Nolan intended, and what was crazy was he nailed I have no idea what it feels like to be in space or in a capsule in space, way away from civilization or any other human. But I think he nailed, or at least for me, that feeling when they're just up there and they're like super far away, and the reality of the math when they're realizing the time difference. That was like, it was like this really solitary feeling. It was strange, but anyway, but back to the Gregorian calendar.
Yeah, well, the Julian calendar, which is ours, but
Mm.
so we'll stick to that and not get too off on a crazy time talk. But I did want to bring up one more thing that I think is funny: is how would you, if you were on a planet like Uranus, where the rotation is actually, uh, you know, I guess you would say the axis is perpendicular instead of, you know, it's on an x-axis instead of a y-axis essentially. So it rotates on its side like a tire, like rolling.
Oh, that's
So how
Oh,
would you
so like
calculate it?
it would be in like a south or a it would be a south
An east and west
sunrise.
pole? Yeah, or your poles are literally like would be east and west for us instead of north and south.
Oh, that
So
is
that would
weird.
be so you wouldn't. How would you calculate a day? Because you're not. There's the same basic sides are always facing the sun versus the other. So
Yeah.
it'd be odd to like that would really trip you out if you actually could live on that planet and be like you'd never. How would you calculate what time line would you use to calculate your day? Or even
I
there's
don't
an
know. And then
example.
the other what is uh like 6 times or whatever bigger than Earth. So granted, let's like just pretend it's a solid landmass. But that would be even weirder because the you would have to have more if the civilization built it up the way we've done it, it would have to have like huge amount of time zones.
Right. And that's another thing. This is my last thing I'll bring up about time before we go back to the leap years. But uh, an oddity here on Earth is how we divide time zones even for how we communicate across the planet. So I mean, just think about us trying like with Ro, trying to get sync up everything when we can all be on. So in China, they only have one time zone. They refuse to split it up, so they have one time zone for the entire country. So people living in the west of China or 6 a.m. is the same for 6 a.m. for people in Beijing, like on the East Coast. So they're like 4.5 hours behind or something like that, 4 or 5 hours behind because China's so huge, but it's still 6 a.m. for them. So it'd be, think about you wouldn't have daylight for another 5 hours if you were living in
Wow,
the
but it
west of
would be
China.
the
crazy.
It's
same
the same
clock
work
time.
day, same work day, but
Whoa.
you would, yeah, people in Beijing are calling you and you have 5 more hours of darkness.
So that would be annoying.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right. Well, let's get back to the leap years here. So, uh, and I don't want to say in just in our lifetime, but I wanted to look back at some of the leap years we've had just in the 21st century because I find it fascinating what years they kind of fall on and some of the events that have happened. And then we'll go back a little farther and look at some other, I guess, what they call the leap year curse. So it seems like unusual amounts of tragedies or just I guess different events that I won't call them all catastrophic or anything, but like strange events seem to fall on leap years. And I know you could probably chalk this up and say, well, bad things happen all the time, but it's been looked at more and more. Uh, we'll start with the first one here, actually, which is that financial curse on leap years. So there have been stock market crashes on leap years in 1992, in 2000, in 2008, in 2000 and 2020, and I think we had, let's see, housing crisis thrown in there too. Let's see what the year again is.
2008.
Yeah, 2008's on there. So the years that we have the financial curse that people have looked at in recent years is 1992. We have the Indian stock market crashing over 50%. Then we have in 2000, very similar situation. Stock market crashed over by 50% there. We have 2008, stock market crashing over 50% due to the financial crisis, global financial crisis. 2016, we have another financial, it says market instability. in the banking sector. Uh, Also, it's just all kinds of things. U.S. elections cause volatility, which is also another thing we'll talk about. Is that it happens to fall on a lot of election years, happen on these leap years for American politics at least. And then most recently, 2020, which we had stock market crash mainly due to COVID, and that obviously will be on other leap year catastrophes we'll talk about. So, do you think there's any merit to this whole watch your stocks during a leap year?
Man, I hope not. Because that would be rough.
Um, man, I don't know. Do you think it would? Do you think it's like uh a sum of like some frustrated equation, like from like the macro of human civilization? There's like something just off. You know how in there's an uptick in cardiac events whenever there is daylight savings. There's a massive uptick in cardiac problems. Um, it's almost like the same kind of thing, but in the financial ecosystem, there's like just some kind of uh something's off. And so I don't know if you know how like we're weird animals to where we can kind of sense uh disruptions in different ways. We may not like cognitively express it or be conscious of it, but we act frustrated when there's like something going on. Maybe there's just like a sum of a frustrated equation out when that calendar normality evens out every 4 years, or is it just psychological? But the thing is, people don't really sit around thinking. This is the first time I've really heard the leap year as like a negative thing. My aunt, which is in her late 70s, just turned 16. It's a family joke because she was born on a leap year. Um, but
That's crazy.
so it's like that's the only kind of real framework I have for it. So it's I don't know. That's weird. Do you think it's more of like a weird what is it called? Like herd the herd spooking. So like something just gets jostled in the economic equation. I don't know.
Well, I don't want to debunk it outright, but I see a very clear pattern in these years that are listed for this, and that is still based in American politics. This is always when there's a party change. So these
Yeah.
years, let's look at it again. 92 is when Clinton, so the Democratic Party takes over from George H.W. Bush. The next one is year 2000. That's when George W. Bush wins the election, taking over from Clinton. 2008, we have Barack Obama. That's the Democratic Party coming back from after George W. And then 2016, that's Donald Trump, Republican Party coming back from 8 years of Barack Obama and the Democratic Party. And then 2020, that's Joe Biden. So
Hmm.
that's the clearest thing I can see that jumps out right at, now that could be coincidence. I mean, some people might not see the importance in that, especially if they're not, part of the American audience, but it's not just election years, it's party change years. And we, other than Donald Trump, we haven't had a one-term president in a while since this has
Hmm.
happened. Because you look at that, it's 92, that's 8 years. Then you
Yeah,
got
it was Bush
2000,
Senior,
we
wasn't it?
changed 8 years. Yep. Bush Senior, Republican. 92, Clinton takes over. That's Democrats for 8 years. 2000 to 2008, that's Republican Party. 2008 happens, that's Democratic Party to 2016, and then 2016 to 2020. So that's the only thing I can see. So, maybe if there's no party change this year, maybe the stock market holds. Who knows?
Oh yeah, it's so interesting. I wonder what will happen.
Or maybe
Just
it doesn't even
just
have to be. It just happens to be odd that it's on a party change. Maybe people aren't worried about it or something. It just I find that fascinating. Maybe when they see a party change happening, maybe investors pull out because of worry because of their own political ideologies or something.
yeah.
I don't.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, half the country is worried whenever there is regime shift back and forth from the the aisles, which are completely imaginary, but the public perception, yeah, half of the country is always worried.
Yeah, that's the only pattern I can see. And is it debunking it? Maybe, maybe not. Like you said, maybe there's just, it's like a full moon syndrome. There's just something weird that people get spooked by. But I just find those years way too coincidental.
Yeah, it's a real coinky dink.
Are
It
there
is.
any celestial things going on every 4 years? Is there some kind of like isn't the sun's like weird dimming and ejections like on kind of like an 8-year cycle or something like that? I'm trying to think if there's anything else on that timetable.
I mean, it's always having, coronal ejections, not what they call like the mass ejections and stuff that we worry about, and things like us being basically, I guess, Earth being crossing that path, and there being like a electronic interference or pole shifts, things like all the people that have different theories and stuff on that. We will get to that because 2012 is going to be one of these leap years, and there's a lot of conspiracy on what happened in 2012, and is that the reason we are where we are now? So we can get
Are
into
you
2012
saying
conspiracy.
that Obama and Mitt Romney destroyed the world, destroyed the universe? Was there like a hard reset?
I think they had the unfortunate position of being there when it happened. Was it always going to happen? Who knows? I think the
Where
event
everybody
was going to
thought the
happen
world was
after he
going to
was there.
end.
Right. They just had tough luck there, I think. But
Man, the
if
Mayans, man.
we want to look at some of these other catastrophes, I'm going to talk about some historical events, and you give me your idea on if any of these have any kind of correlation or any kind of like, link up at all. So first off, both Shakespeare and Miguel de Cervantes died on the same leap year in 1616.
Wait,
That's
who?
Miguel de Cervantes, who wrote Don Quixote, and Shakespeare. So
Oh,
two of
oh.
history's famous writers. So that I find fascinating. That's just the Salem
Isn't
witch trials.
Shakespeare? Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, isn't Shakespeare like not a real person? It's like multiple different people.
I wanted to do an entire episode on that, and we'll probably get around to it. So
Okay, I would like to hear an
actually,
entire episode on that.
yes, I want to do an entire episode on people who might not have actually existed in history, because there's more than
That
just
would be really
Shakespeare.
cool.
Well, we can talk about that for a minute after we're done with this episode. But yeah, I want to do an entire episode on that. All right, some more. So we talked about this one before we recorded. The Salem witch trials began actually on leap day of the leap year in 1692.
It's wild. Maybe there is
We have
something. Maybe there is a connection.
in
Yeah.
1792 we have the French Revolution. During the French Revolution, the guillotine is actually introduced, used for the
Oh my
first time.
gosh.
It's like mass hysteria or something.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe there's a shift in like, I don't know, the Earth's magnetic poles or something. Makes us
The
all
witches
crazy.
missed their crystal charging of the moon. Something
Mhm.
about the leap
Yeah.
year throws off their charge.
Mm-hmm.
We fast forward now to 1812, where Napoleon is finally defeated, and he finally loses in a leap year, which reverses his conquest of Europe. So his luck ran out in a leap year. In 1912, fast forwarding, the Titanic sank in April of a leap year.
Wait,
Most famous shipwreck of all time?
is 2001? Was that a leap year? Or is it
No,
2000?
2000 was.
Oh,
Oh yeah. Oh, I get what you're trying. Yeah, yeah.
It's like a 9/11.
Fast forwarding some more, we have 1940. We know a lot of bad stuff happened there.
Yeah.
So we have obviously the first concentration camps are built in 1940. And at this point, even though World War II has arguably started earlier, depending on what theater you're talking about, this is kind of 1939, late 1939 going to 1940 is what people consider kind of kicking off the European section of World War II. In 1944, we have Pope John Paul II, who gets hit by a truck in Poland.
Whoa.
Did he die?
No, he survived. He survived,
Oh.
and also I believe he went on to get shot later, didn't he?
Did he die that time?
Yeah, he didn't die from that either, I don't believe.
No.
Whoa.
He died an old guy.
but-
Pope John Paul II.
Yeah, but
Yeah, he
fast
died.
forward
He died
from the gunshot.
No. He was just old.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure
okay.
he.
I remember he
There's
survived
a
a bunch of he
there's a
went and
school.
saw
Oh, that's why.
he, yeah, he went and visited the man who shot him in prison. So that was like a big deal. I remember that. There's like
Whoa.
a fast forwarding though to 1948, the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. In 1960, leap year, we have the worst earthquake on record, a 9.5 magnitude in Chile. Also, on leap day of 1960, we have another earthquake, which you have one having another geologic event like that is not going to be that out of the ordinary. But we have another major earthquake in Morocco that killed, they say, up to 15,000 people, about a third of I didn't say what city. Agadir, the third of the city's population. 1968, we have the assassination of Martin Luther King. So if you're a good person, probably don't go out on a leap year. Just
Oh
take
my.
a
Yeah.
year off.
Or if you're planning
1968
to take over the
also,
world, just watch your leap years.
also in 1968 with the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
In 1972 leap year, we have the Munich Olympic massacre.
Yeah.
Whoa, wait, what?
That was with the hostages on the plane, right?
And that was where the I can't remember the name of the group that took them hostage, but they took the 11 of the Israeli Olympians hostage, and
Forgotten
eventually,
movie.
oh,
Very good
Munich,
movie.
yes,
Hmm.
very good movie. Also, that event started the creation of GSG-9, which if you've never looked into them, they're a counterterrorism group out of Germany. It's a HK basically explicitly was made all of their weapons.
Uh,
So a lot of the best weapons, I think personally, a lot of the best designed weapons were created specifically for GSG-9. The MP5, obviously the HK91, the PSG-1, which is Chef's Kiss, the best sniper rifle ever invented in my mind.
huh.
Uh, was largely considered for the longest time the most accurate semi-automatic firearm on the planet. I don't know if anyone's dethroned it yet. All right, moving on to 1980, we have the assassination of John Lennon. Not a great person, but a major figure. Uh, Fast forwarding to 2004, we have the Indian Ocean tsunami, which we all know killed like what 20,000 people or something like that. Or it was more than that. It was like 200,000 people all across the Pacific. And then we have all of the financial crises, which on this list that I've made are rehashed. And then 2020, obviously, we have COVID. And I'm leaving out 2012 specifically because it gets its own discussion. So, do you think this is just bad things are going to happen and they just happen? I mean, every 4 years, it seems like it shouldn't be a curse, really. I don't know. I kind of lean towards bad things are going to happen. And if your chances are 1 in 4, that's pretty good.
Yeah, when you think about it, like, okay, for example, 9/11 didn't happen on a leap year, and that was pretty bad. It was really bad.
Right.
Um, and all these like horrible things that just go on throughout the world, like, there's just a lot of crazy stuff happening out there, and I think a lot of notable events have seemed to happen on leap years, but I think it's a coincidence, if anything.
I think, yeah, I think everyone,
I'm stuck in the middle.
I mean, maybe some of it has to do with like, maybe there is some kind of shift in, you know, on this planet that causes things that causes people to just go a little crazy, go a little insane, and just become more like volatile and just angry and violent.
maybe there's other forces at work we don't know about, but
Or that maybe there's some like magic.
yeah. Or if you're
Dun, dun,
like one of those
dun.
people that subscribe to universal mathematics and things like that, just thinking,
Some alchemy,
yeah.
some secret society stuff.
I mean, you can't rule out. That's a good point. The secret society stuff. There is a bunch of crazy people in the rungs of power that are into like numerology, for lack of a better word, that kind of stuff, and they're very superstitious. Like, what's the thing? It's like, um, uh, what's the old thing? Like, a millionaire. Uh, anyway, the point is that like the ultra rich, very powerful, seem to be kind of unhinged in their belief patterns. But I kind of fall in the middle. I feel like this is something where there's clearly like we know like like long sustained weather pattern changes, and different eras in human civilizations have dramatically affected human behavior. So maybe there is something that we're like kind of unaware of, or the just like the normal day to day, there's just something off, and then like just the herd feels it, and then things get all fucked up through that. Or and then some of it is like there's a bunch of things that bad happen that don't happen on those dates, so it could be just a mixture of both.
Yeah.
And I do like the election cycle that you're talking about. I mean, both parties are very try to do all kinds of things to position themselves leading up, and that can cause a lot of kind of weird things occurring. So yeah, I think it's kind of all the above. But I wish I knew more. I want to meet what were we talking about, a Neptunian, and know their whole way they deal with time and time zones. It would be really cool to meet up with a civilization that had to adapt on like a weird orbit, and then we had to like figure out how to communicate and trade with them, and all our schedules are messed up.
That would be pretty sick.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see. And I found some stuff which, like I said, it gets real in depth. But numerologists talking about significance of leap years, and I mean, it goes down the rabbit hole, and it's not really speculation as much as it is. I don't want to like misspeak here and compare it to something like astrology or whatever, but like it's more of an attitude or a feeling. So they'll say like, oh, this leap year comes to this, so financial success is in your future. Kind of a horoscope
Mm-hmm.
more than actually like predicting an event or tragedies or something like that. I mean, I'm sure there might be some where it adds up and it's like, yeah, don't go outside today. But for the most part, it's more of like a farmer's almanac more than it is a hard prediction of the future.
Yeah. Wonder what Edgar Casey would say.
I don't know. That would be interesting if he has
Yeah.
anything on. Oh, someone should have asked him that.
Yeah, I know. He randomly popped up in my like a documentary of him feed, and it reminded me of our conversation about him. He was like this guy that, man, he made predictions, but he would go under in trances. I don't know what you call it. Um, uh, what do they call it? Like, what are the emerald tablets supposed to be? Universal knowledge.
Uh,
It's like,
the Akashic records.
yeah,
Akashic
it's
records.
like a term, but there's like a
Gotcha.
term, a less like mystical term that people seem to be relaying to it now. It's something like something source. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Uh, yeah. Anyway, he was a fascinating guy, and I'm pretty sure the first time I heard about him was you talking about.
Yeah, yeah. He's definitely very interesting to get into, and I mean, we've brought him up. I don't know if we've ever done like a full. I don't remember if we've done actually any kind of full deep dive on him. We should do one comparing him and Nostradamus because I always find that fascinating. That Edgar Casey is, I find, way more fascinating than Nostradamus.
Yeah, yeah, I can see why. Just the
A
very
much
little
more.
I've been watching.
I mean, his record alone puts him above Nostradamus in my book. Is if you just look at stuff that we have, he's more recent. He's in the 20th century. Like we have so much documentation on him, and there's like I think that I can't remember where the Edgar Casey Museum is now. I need to look that up. But I mean, we have so much
Ooh.
information and so much like actual documentation on him as opposed to what we have from Nostradamus and people trying to interpret context that's you know hundreds of years old, which we don't have any. I mean, we barely have context for stuff from the 19th century. Like people will read stuff and read into it and not put themselves in the actual mentality of someone living in that time. You got to take yourself out of having a cell phone and having a compendium of all human knowledge in your hand and put yourself in the shoes of somebody who probably never made it outside of their hometown for their entire lives and try to get into that mindset and interpret a letter. Uh,
Yeah. The museum is at Virginia Beach.
that's right. That's right.
Man, it would be
Alright,
cool.
well, do we
We're
wanna jump
eventually going to go to
into
Mammoth Cave and then the Edgar Casey Museum.
we can do that. Do we wanna jump into 2012 now and say if was this the leap year to end all leap years, literally?
Yes, I want to hear this.
Alright.
Two.
So 2012 happened to be a leap year. We know, obviously, everyone built up the whole Mayan calendar, which
Mm-hmm.
I have my own opinions on, which, because it wound down to what became the year 2012, people assumed naturally that it was, oh, that must be the end of the world then, because their calendar stops in 2012. I mean, obviously, the stone tablet it was on only had so much room. So I don't know if they meant for it to stop at 2012 or not. I guess we'll never know, since the Mayans basically broke up as a single entity and just lived as various tribes in the in the Yucatan and then down south of Guatemala. They spread out all over Central America, which there are Mayans still around. People just I like the myth that people think they just disappeared. It's like, no, there's still people that are direct descendants. They didn't have a centralized unified empire like we think of the Aztecs having. They just kind of spread into the jungles of Central America, you can say. Um, but 2012 has more recently been looked at now as in a what if scenario. So today people are looking at 2012 as, what if the world did end, but not in a way we thought? We knew there was going to be a supposed pole shift, or we talked about coronal mass ejections earlier. There was all this speculation because NASA and other scientists were saying, well, there are these provable celestial events that are happening in 2012, and they kind of just came and went. And because the world didn't catch fire, people just went about their lives in 2013 like nothing happened. But now the idea has caught on because so much bad stuff has happened since 2012. So I guess in the last 12 years, we'll say, as of this recording. If you're listening to this in the future, congratulations, you made it. But we look back now and we say, well, what if the world ended, but not in a way we thought it did? What if there was a pole shift? What if there was something that happened? Or what if the world ended and we all collectively just got shot over into the next multiverse, like cross to the next bubble, you can say, through the veil, and or we all shifted into our next closest reality, if you believe in a multiverse, or a string theory basis for multiverse. What if that was the end of the world? And that explains things like the Mandela effect and other I guess misinformed memories. So where do you want to start tackling
Yeah.
this?
I don't know. I saw a Berenstain Bear book at the thrift store today, and I told her we're in the wrong universe because it was never that way for me.
It's Berenstein, not Berenstain. Berenstain.
Yeah, yeah,
Stain.
not Stain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
supposed to be Stein.
yeah. So I don't know. I feel like around that time, people, was it a little bit before the online really started talking about the Mandela effect around 2012, or was it a little bit before?
It's really picked up recently, and that's because when I need to look up when Nelson Mandela actually did pass away is when it was actually
Yeah.
coined. So let me look up, and that might clear up. Let's see.
That was a
So
bizarre one. I
Nelson
remember that.
Mandela Nelson Mandela died on December 5th, 2013. He died post 2012, and that is when people
So
started misremembering him dying in prison years earlier.
yes, but it was weird because didn't Obama make a speech somewhere over there, and he was like on the platform. Mandela was nearby or something. It was something like that. There was a speech where he was there, and then everybody was like, "Wait a minute, didn't he die?" That I remember that, and I
Yeah,
remember
it
the
was
whole thing about yeah.
It was either that or it was when he died. Because I remember people starting really popping up after the funeral, and people were saying, "Wait a minute, I thought he died years ago."
Whoa.
Well, this is like with me. I remember Betty White dying, and then she wasn't dead, and then a few years later, someone was like, "Well, she just died," and then I was like, "Nuh-uh." I looked it up on my phone. I didn't believe it because I remember specifically Betty White dying like a couple of years before that. So that was like my own Betty effect.
Well, we won't tackle too many of the Mandela effects, but this also can kind of people who believe in simulation theory. They think that maybe 2012 was like a reboot or an update or a patch of some sort.
Okay, that's too
so, you,
much. That's
so you can take
that's
this in a
going
couple different ways.
overboard.
I don't know.
But it just seems like
Matrix, man.
society collectively. I think part of the problem is like I know we had it before, but in 2012, I think the accessibility to like iPhones and things like that is starting to take off, and social media platforms really growing. Like I mean, we had the infancy in 2006. You had Facebook, you had MySpace, you had YouTube in their kind of infancy, but in 2012, it's widespread by this point. Like it's not for it's caught on, and so people are really connected. So I think maybe this information is being traded more by 2012 also, and that's maybe why people are starting to be like, oh yeah, I remember that too, or you just heard the lyrics of this song, or I thought this person was dead, or I thought it was Berenstain, or things like that. Because now we're able to like fact check each other, and
Yeah.
that wasn't necessarily available before 2012. This is when it's really kind of wildfire, where everyone's really connected and people are getting on board. So maybe that attributes to it
Yeah, yeah.
or country at that point.
Things have gotten weird. Um, I would say that social media might, yeah, I think you're right. There might be an element to it where people just say all kinds of things. So several groups of people may misremember something based on just faulty information. Uh, I didn't think about it that way.
That makes sense.
I just like how Mark Zuckerberg is like caught secretly going to jujitsu matches, like anonymously.
Why?
Yeah, there's like photos of him like going into tournaments without bodyguards around him. He's just like has a hoodie on and he just like pops up. Every time I hear about like Facebook, I think of like nerdy Mark Zuckerberg, and then now he's like doing mixed martial arts and like sneaking into tournaments.
Well, I don't know. I think it's still going to be up in the air with this whole leap year thing. I think the catastrophes and all are just coincidence. I think bad stuff and good stuff is happening all the time, and like I said, a 25% chance of it happening on a leap year. That's pretty high odds. I mean,
Yeah.
if you think about it, it's a quarter of our lives, literally. so, uh, so I can't really say that there's something inherently cursed about leap years, but I think the questions that it makes you think of, some of the things we've brought up tonight, is kind of worth delving into. Thinking about time and our perception and our organization of time, how we try to quantify it into a number and make sense
Yeah.
of it when it's really not. Time is an experience, not a calendar. But we have to get on the same page, so we create this structure that we try to follow.
Yeah. Well,
Time is never on my side. Never.
I like the possibility that it could be a little bit of each of these things. I'm not ready personally to throw it out completely, but this is just the first time I've actually thought about all of them lining up. I mean, yeah, you got the whole 4-year thing, and a lot of things happen that way. But at the same time, I still think there's something there where, just generally speaking, there's fluctuations in like just societal attitude or expression or something. But now
I
I'm worried.
think
Now I'm thinking what's going to happen. Like you know what would really seal the deal is like what's leading up to like deep this year. If something gets nuts, I mean, we have what was the new the new Candida strain they were talking about. It was like,
Oh, that's already well, it's up in northeast in America already, but yeah, the fungal basically, uh, it's yeah, it's fungal based, not bacteria based, right?
yeah, yeah, it's a yeast, it's a fungus, so it's antibiotic resistant, so they can't kill it with antibiotics. And
It's got like an 80% mortality rate.
Oh my god.
and so the now I wouldn't go. I would just be like, I don't know what to get this. I don't know what the spreading mechanism is, because usually with intestinal yeast infections, you have to your gut biome has to be pretty compromised to begin with, and then you're someone like that's a heavy beer drinker or something where you're drinking a lot of not good microbes, and then you get a stubborn form of candida. But candida itself is very prevalent in the United States, and sugar is the one thing that feeds it, like very like you feed it sugar and you're going to get all kinds of byproducts including alcohol that it converts the sugars into, so you get a lot of bizarre mental symptoms from massive like systemic yeast infections. So, I mean, hey, it could be a fungal based zombie like situation where people just lose their minds and they die.
I don't need that. I don't need that in my life either.
So
No,
okay,
thank you.
we could do that. Someone seizes power unscrupulously, then a civil war happens. So if the fungal infection leads to dicey presidential debates that then leads into a civil war, I'll be a believer in this whole 4-year timetable
Is
thing.
this like The Last of Us?
It's like a combination of The Last of Us and uh just straight up civil war. I don't know.
I don't want to. I was very sad last night thinking about
Yeah,
that.
predictive programming.
And then I started to see stuff and I was like, no, I'm seeing it and making the connections. And I got really sad.
So
And I
here's
fell
a
asleep.
theory I just came up with. I want to present this theory, and I don't know who can figure this out. Someone smarter than me. I'm calling it the office space simulation leap year theory, and it's if we have set our calendar to have this decimal point of time added to each year, and we are actually living in a simulation, and maybe that decimal point is in the code that they've left in there. Could somebody office space style be banking like that thousandth decimal point, and then they can live for an extra 20 years after they've banked enough of it.
that would be a that would be the most epic life hack ever.
my
I know
gosh.
exactly what you're uh
Were we just talking about that movie?
yeah, yesterday I was like, Office Space is good, maybe we should watch it sometime.
Yeah.
I was
Well,
like,
it's
they
been in the
don't
public
make
eye here
comedies like that
lately
anymore.
'cause it just had its 25th anniversary, so it's been like a lot of people. It's been in the public eye here a lot recently.
Oh. Oh, I hope they have like a Blu-ray. If they don't already, I don't know.
All right. Well, we have anything else to talk about leap years?
I don't think that. That's a pretty neat bow on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main thing is for me, I'm just gonna watch the rest of this year. I'll make my final determination and holler back.
Maybe we should circle back on this like at the end of the
Circle
year.
back. Let's circle back.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
circle back
We
on it.
can review. And I think we should get I think we should get another perspective from someone. Let's see if we can find a viewer out there that does not use a Julian calendar in the country they live in, and see
Oh, okay.
like how they
Oh.
handle leap years if they're.
I want
Wait, does Ro? I don't know anything about broken up across the world.
Pretty sure they still use the Julian calendar.
Oh, okay.
I should go just use the Tamriel calendar.
Yeah, yeah,
Morndis or whatever they use in Skyrim. I don't
Yeah.
know.
yeah.
I have
14
a cup that
Mortis.
says I hate Morndis. I hate Mondays.
You got a case of the Mondays. It's coming back. And Scott says a full circle now.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up for there. Thanks again. If you're listening to this, maybe you should go do some own research on leap years or write to us on any of our social medias if you would like to present your own theory on are leap years cursed or did we miss something as far as a very overlooked tragedy, or maybe something good that happens on leap years. And yeah, we might revisit this later in the year, and maybe we'll talk about our own personal experiences of weird leap year events and things like that. But once again, we want to thank you for listening. And remember, we don't want stuff that's normal. We want stuff that's effing weird.
Yeah.